All right, so here is a blank Ableton session right when you first open it up. And you can see you have two MIDI tracks right here. You have two audio tracks, and this one right here is my voice so you can hear me. And then two return tracks and a master channel or track, whatever you want to call it. So right away you can tell that Ableton is different from most other DAWs, namely, like a Pro Tools or something like where it's like this, where it's all just this laid out view. Ableton has this clip or session view, I think is what they call it. Session view. And if you ever need to see anything in Ableton and understand what it is, this little info bar down here will give you a little bit of information on it. So we have the clip view, and then we have the more traditional kind of arrangement view here where you can lay everything out. And Ableton is super cool because it has this clip or session view where you can kind of jam and remix and just do all this really interesting stuff. So to kind of start out, here's an audio channel, and you can see these little slots right here, and this is where clips can go. So you can create audio clips by arming and then clicking into one of these to create a clip, or you can use MIDI. You can actually just right click to insert MIDI clip, and now you can start adding MIDI and then changing whatever instrument or whatever it is. So the way it works is, in this view at least, the way it works is down here you'll have the clips, and then right down here you have your audio in and monitor and audio out, audio to, audio from, audio to. The from here, this just means external input. So you could set it to be like, one of the other audio tracks, or it could be like a return or the master if you want to do that, but you make sure you mute it. But yeah, basically it's the audio flows, down like this, down the channel. And then you can see down here, there's a little bit of meters right here telling you kind of what the dBFS is, full scale decibel right down here. And you can see I have this input enabled or arm to record or whatever you want to call it. And cool. And then you have these sends here, and this just means you can send signal to from this channel to one of these returns. So if I just start sending this on A, you can see how it'll come through. Now you don't really want to do that because you want to put an effect or something on here, or else you might get some phasing weird stuff. But anyways, then you have the sends here. So then audio tracks can have any kind of audio, right? So it could be a full song, an MP3. It could be a stem, like one part of the full song. You can kind of get really creative with how you do it here. But what you have is a bunch of these clip slots right here. And then if you look all the way over here, you can see how there's a little play button right here. This is called a scene. So that just means it's like when I hit play here, any clips that are in these slots will be played. They'll start playing. And then depending on how you have each of the clips set up, they'll either do something or just keep playing or whatever you have it set to do. So you can really program it and get super specific. It's really cool. So then you can also see down here this monitor section. So this just applies if you're if the input is audio or MIDI. Right here you can see the same thing too. It just depends on whether it's audio or MIDI, and then what you're trying to do. So like if I wanted to bring, like record this track, one thing that's really cool about Ableton is I can just come to this audio from and then select voice, right? So now you can see it's kind of lighting up here. If I click on the record enable, now you can see it's picking it up. So basically I'm using the microphone, which is in input 5 in my interface. And then now I'm taking and about to record the audio into this track, and I don't have to send anything from over here like how most other DAWs. It's you put it on a bus, right, and then you send the bus to different auxiliary tracks or however you route it. But basically, you're taking the input and output. This in Ableton allows you to just grab an input. It's basically just a copy of the signal. So it's super cool in the way that it allows you to do that. And all the signal from all of these tracks over here and the return tracks, then flow to the master. And you can see that right here where it says audio to master, right? MIDI to, no outputs for that, but because there's no instrument or anything on there. This here, you can see the audio sending to the master, and then audio to here going to the master. Okay, so we've done the clips, we've done the tracks. Over here, you can see here's, sends the grayed out. Then you can set whether it's pre or post fader for the sends. I think that's what it is. Q out just means you can have a separate like headphone mix kind of thing. And then here's the master output, which is just 1 and 2, 1 and 2. And then the Q out will also determine what the output is for what's playing over here when you like preview a clip. So you can preview a clip while everything's playing in here, and it'll play it it's supposed to play it at the right time, at the right tempo and everything. So cool. Let's say you want to, let's just start making something and just add like a drum kit and just start making something. So what we can do is come over here to instruments over on this side right here. And this is this panel right here is going to have basically locations where you can go to get stuff. So down here, it's the places. So this is like, hey, here's my desktop, right? Here's my downloads folder. Here's like, whatever, all these different things. Here's my external hard drive and all that stuff. And you can just basically just click on that, add a folder, navigate to it, and then it'll put it over here and then populate everything that's within that folder there. And then up here, you have the kind of like Ableton, the stuff that comes with Ableton. So here's, sounds. You can see all the different kind of stuff there. Here's drums. These are all like the drum kits here. And there's drum hits up here. Down here is the instruments, and this is what we're interested in right here, right now. So what we can do is on a MIDI track, you can take a drum rack instrument, and so you can just drag and drop it, or I think you can just double click too. So I'll just drop it on there. And now here's what you see, right? So you just see notes. So it's C1 through, G, whatever. This is basically just an instrument rack, drum rack, whatever you want to call it, and you can put instruments on here and just sounds that you can trigger. It's really kind of uses MIDI in a really cool kind of creative way. So one way that you can do this, and one way that's like beneficial for everybody, is you can use it as a drum rack. And what you do is you come down here, you put the drum rack on there, and then you take samplers and drag it and drop it onto each of the notes wherever you want them. And this will correspond, if you were using a MIDI keyboard, it would correspond, those samples or whatever would correspond to the notes. So this would be C1. When I hit C1, it'll trigger this. And then you can see right here, it says drop samples here. So what you can do is here, I'll just come over to like a sample bank or whatever. So we'll just come into one of these. And what you can do that's really cool is, so I can grab all these kicks once it unfreezes. So what you'll do is you can set up to 127, I think is what it is, or 128 samples in here. And what you can do is, so you could just like kind of highlight all these, select those, and then you just drop them into here. And then if I click on this little zone button, it'll come up, open up here, and then show you these. And then see how this says key right here? Come over to the select, and then right click over here, and then do distribute ranges equally. And then now what I have is basically a selector that selects between all the different samples. So now what's cool is I can actually just take this little selector thing, which I can drag this way. If you right click on it, go down to map to macro 1. Once you do that, this will pop up, and now it says sample selector. So what I usually do is I'll just rename it, which is just Command R or Control R, whatever you're using. So I can say kick. And then now once I add MIDI onto here, I can basically change the kick as it's playing. So if I want to, let's say I'll bring in, come over here to the user library, up in clips, this drums, and this is just basically one of these kind of already made, right? So you can see I've got the kick, snare, hi-hat A, hi-hat B, and then the open hi-hat. So if I hit play here, now what I can do is go through, and I can move this, So now it's just changing what's happening as it's playing. And then I can do the same thing with the snare. And then hi-hats. All right. So it's just a really cool thing that you can do with MIDI within Ableton. And then the rest of this over here, you're going to have your instruments, which we saw. Then you have all your audio effects with a tuner right here, which is really helpful if you're tuning a bass guitar or whatever. It's really good. Then you have MIDI effects, and then it comes with this thing called Max for Live, which is like a separate kind of effects and instrument platform on there. Right here is where if you have any plugins, it'll show up here, and I'll show you where that's kind of set in preferences here in a second. And then just clips, samples, and then here's all the locations, the places area where you can find files, drag and drop, and all that kind of stuff. So let's take a look at the preferences. So preferences, look and feel up here. This is just going to be, you know, kind of what your preference is. You can change the color and the auto assigning track colors and all this kind of stuff. It's really, you know, don't need to worry about too much here. Audio, this is going to be important because this is where you're going to set your input and output if you're using a interface. If you're just using your computer, it'll most likely just say something like, you know, MacBook Pro microphone and MacBook speakers, or whatever your computer is. Right here, you're going to set the sample rate. So it's going to be 44.1, 48, 88.2, 96. You know, you can set it for whatever. There's a theory that basically sampling at higher rates produces higher quality audio. But the thing is that it all comes back to 16-bit 44.1K for the sample rate. So if you're going to be recording and then mixing in a higher sample rate, it's ultimately going to be downgraded to the 44.1K if you're going to release it. So in my opinion, I just record at 44.1 and just kind of just leave it unchanged. Right here, you got, you know, normal versus high quality. You're always going to want to have that high quality on. Right here, we have a buffer size, which you can set at 32 to 2048. The general theory with this is when you're recording, you want a lower buffer size, and if you're mixing, you want a higher buffer size. Something like 512 or 256 usually just works pretty well for everything. But you can see right here, it has this error compensation, which reduces the latency. So if I was just, let's say, like, you know, you get a new interface and you come in and it's like this, right? You see, you're like, oh, wow, there's latency, 86 milliseconds. That's a lot. So what you do is you just kind of figure out where it is. So I know it's going to be down. Oh, now it's negative. So it's going to be right around there, right? So now I have minus 18. So I'll just put in minus 18.03, and now it's at 0. So that'll help with the latency, and you want to get this as close to 0 as you possibly can. It's a test tone. Cool. Link and MIDI, this is where you're going to set if you have MIDI controllers or, you know, any kind of thing that you can control with MIDI. It's going to be in here. And then you have these different ports that you can select, and it's just, there's a lot of stuff here, but we won't get too much into that right now. File folder, you can save the current set as the default set so that every time you start a new set, it looks as the current set looks. So if you want to change it, what you do is you just go and modify it to how you want. So for me, I'd be like, hey, I'm just going to take off those returns. I'm going to add a compressor and a brick wall limiter to the master track there. And then what you could do is just come back and go click save. And then now every time you create a new set, it will look like just like how this one is. And you don't need to do anything about it. This create analysis files is on. And all that means is Ableton will create a separate file with the audio track after you bring it in. And it'll read the audio and then essentially have this file there so that if you use that audio again, it'll already recognize that it has already analyzed it and go, oh, here's the audio, here's what its BPM is, and here where the transient markers are, and basically just kind of analyze it. So you can turn that off if you want. It's kind of confusing if you're sending files because you're going to send these random files that aren't audio but have the same name as the audio file. So just be careful with that. Here's, the max, the minimum, max application, the minimum cache space and everything. Let's take a look at the library. This is where you can set your location of the user library and different packs that Ableton has right here, which you can see right here. Here's the plugins. You can actually just get it to scan right when you open it up if you add new stuff or you change where the locations are. But in general, it's all pretty consistent. Here's the record, warp, and launch. You can set your file type, AIF or WAVE. I usually just go with WAVE and just keep it at 16 bit depth, 16 bits. And then see where it says exclusive. That just means when I click down here, do I have to hold command to get that to turn on and off? Or can I just click it? So it's not exclusive in that way, and it'll turn on the recording for all of them. So that's why that's unchecked. Let's see here. Okay, cool. So loops, warp, short samples, auto. I'd probably just leave it at that. I put the default warp mode to be complex instead of like beats or tones or whatever, just because I'd want it to start that way. You can always change it later within the clip, and I'll show you that. Here's some launch stuff that we can get into in a little bit, but in general, that's kind of what you're going to do with what you need to be concerned about with the preferences. All right, let's record some audio and check out how warping works and how it works between the session view and the arrangement view and how you can kind of use those together. So, all right, so I'm going to record some bass. So I'll just come up to this open audio track here. I'll just rename that and just put bass. And then what you need to do is set the input where that's coming from. So here you have external input. That's what that means. So I'll select that. And then now it just shows all the different inputs that are available. It's actually number 3 here. So I'll set that. Then record arm or record enable. And then I'll have the monitor section here in auto, which just means I'll be able to hear it when I play it. Cool. So there's that. So what I'll do is I'll record a bass, just a simple bass line over this drum beat, and then show you what the clip looks like, what you can kind of do with the clip, and how to kind of get it all in time so that it's all at the same tempo and hitting all at the same time. So here is what I would do. So I could actually, if I wanted to record a clip, which is what I want to do because I don't know how many times I want to do it. So I'm just going to click into here, and then it'll start recording, and it'll play the drums, and then I can record, and then I can set the length of the clip and everything where it starts and stops. I could also do it by coming over here to this arrangement view and just coming up here and hitting record, and then it would record the clip all out this way, but it would also record anything else that I have that's record armed or record enabled. So because of that, I'm just going to use the clip view here. So when I click on that right there, it's going to start creating a clip, start recording. So I'll play to it, and then we can just adjust the audio. So, all right, here we go. So I'll just wait until it comes back to the 4 or whatever. So. All right, cool. So that was, looks like it's 12 or whatever. All right, so I'll just hit stop. Now, if I double click on the actual clip right here, now you can see the audio right here. It looks like I didn't have it really, the gain turned up too loud, but what I can do is now I'm looking at the clip here, right? So on the clip, you have your name, the color, you can set the time signature, and then you have, here's the file name that was created, and it'll show, if I click on this, it'll show it to you like where it is in the search pane here. And then if I right click on this, I can go to show in Finder, and it'll show me exactly where that's located if you need to find it. So for this one, let's just go, I'll just use the 4 bars from 9 to 13 because that was probably the best playing. Let's check that out. So I'll just make it 4 bars here. And now if I zoom in, if you need to zoom, you just have to hover above, right here, above that timeline where the numbers are. And now I can zoom in and out like that and then move it this way. So Cool, let's hear what it sounds like. I can take that off record enable. Cool, now I got a loop there, so let's make it fit exactly right. So one thing you can do is you can just turn up the volume. You can just add gain like this. So I can just turn it up like that, right? Now you can hear it a little bit better. I'll just turn it down so it's kind of hear everything. Cool. All right, so now what I can do is if you come in here and you see these little triangles, there's one right there, there's one right there, there's one right there. These just indicate transient markers. And what that means is that's basically the moment that the sound starts, right? That it picks it up and says, oh, it starts right here, it starts right here. It might not be 100% accurate. You might zoom in and sometimes it'll set it right here instead of like right where it actually starts. But in general, it's gonna do it right when it first starts. The sound first is picked up and recorded. So what I can do is if I double click on this, I just added a warp marker. That's what these things are called. So now what I can do with this is I can literally just go bloop and drag it whatever way I want. So before I do that, one thing that you need to know is, so if I start dragging it over here, you can see everything moved, right? Everything shifted just a little bit to the left because I moved this thing to the left. I just undid it. So what I can do is, what I usually do is I look for notes where I'm like, okay, that was obviously on the right bar, beat, or whatever. So this one looks pretty good. I'll just drag it just a tiny little bit there, and I'll put one here. And so what I'm doing now when I move this, it'll only move what's in between this warp marker and that one. So now it's only going to be these two transient markers or transients. So then I can just double click this, put that on the bar, and now I can just, I'll just come over here and just do the rest of these really quick and just get it as close to on the beat and everything as possible. So you just literally just click, double click up there and you can drag it. So I'll put these all right where they're supposed to go. Cool. And now I'm getting it all lined up on the grid and everything. Cool. So now let's take a listen to it. Cool. So now everything's lined up. It's all good. It's ready to go. Let's say you wanted to like take this audio with you. One of the things that I do is I'll just record it internally in this session, in this program. So I'll just create a new audio track, and then what I can do is I'll just say bass bounce right here. So now what I'll do is I can just grab the audio from that track. So now I'll leave the monitor off so it's not playing double. I'll turn this on, and now it'll record into here, and you'll see it'll be gray as it plays. And that just means the monitor is turned off because I don't need to hear it twice. It'll just be doubly as loud. So now what I can do is just click into this and it'll record this clip. So I can let this go as long as I want. So I could do 16 bars of this, or I could do 4, what it just is. I'll just leave it the same as it is. Cool. Now I have the bass printed, more or less, with all the things that I added, all the warp markers. I added some gain on the volume and moved the transients into place. And now right here, it's just the plain audio. So if you send this audio to someone else, it'll be exactly what this is. If you tried to send this without bouncing it first, you would literally just send the original file. You have to either consolidate it within here or just kind of print it by recording it internally. So, all right, awesome. So now let's take a look at some things that you can do within the clips. So one thing that's really cool is within the clips, you can actually set the volume and all the different kind of, you can transpose it, turn it up and turn it down in terms of the tuning. So here, I'll just click on mixer, and then you have speaker on, track panning, track volume, and X fade assigned. So what I can do is I can mess with here's speaker on, so I could turn it on and off as it went through here. You could do something like that. A lot of times what I'll use it for is just the volume. So track volume. So you could say like, oh, let's just raise it up a little bit or whatever. You can make it a little bit higher. Or you could say like, oh, this part peaks a little bit too much right here. So let's dip it down right here. And this is called automation. And these little anchors is what they're called, work really similarly to the transient markers. So what you're doing is you're just saying, hey, I want to affect this part right here. So I'm putting these anchors right here. So it's really, I mean, to really do it, you would just zoom in really far and then go as close as you could. But depending on what you need to do, go and zoom in as much as you need. So I usually don't do this. I'll just usually, and if you want to click these off, you can just hold. You can just double click it again. There you go. Now it's off. Now it's back to 0, and you can use that. Let's add in a couple audio clips or tracks here so I can show you how the launch behavior actually works. So I'll just come over to my Ableton folder and let's go to Ant-Man. We got Ant-Man playing in the playoffs right now. Here's the stems for this one. So let's just add in, cool, I'm just adding this piano right here and see how it's analyzing that track, and then it's determining what the BPM or the tempo is for it, and then basically aligning itself to, it says, hey, I read this as this tempo, so that's what it's going to be. Not sure if that's actually the right tempo or not, but let's find out. So cool. One thing you're going to want to do right now, so you can see it's warped, but it's not looped. So see this little loop button? If I click that, it'll loop just this like 1 bar right there. So if I click on that, it'll go boop, and now it's only looping that 1 bar. So what I want to do is let's just give it 16 bars right there. Cool. So now this is probably not in the same key, but let's just do this. So here's the bass, and then here's this piano. Cool. All right, so let's check out the launch behavior. So when I come over here, click on this little launch box. That's what you get right there. What the legato means, if I have this on, it means that it's going to keep track of where it is bar beat wise, and it's going to pick it up wherever it should be. So let's say I'm playing this, and you can see right here. Cool. So now it should be in the 3rd bar, and then once it gets to the 5th bar, if I clicked on it then, it would have gone right back to this because it's only 4 bars long. But let's see. Click on that, and it went back to the right. Let's go back here. Oh, I didn't have the legato on that one. There we go. All right, so let's just do it this way. Cool, and then let's take a look here. When I click on that, see, picked it up right at 3. So it'll remain in time if you want to do it that way. Cool. So one thing you can do is you can set the quantization to be whatever it is up here, which is just 1 bar, and that's like when it will launch. So you could set it to be, specifically down here, whatever you want it to be, or you could just use what's set right here. So cool. So what do we have here? It says follow action, and then it says 1, and then it has these options, and then these options, and then this is the probability, I think, chance. Cool. So it just has to be higher than 1 or higher than this one for it to actually happen. So let's say after I play this one, it goes to the previous clip. And then on this one, we'll set the follow action to be next. So what'll happen is when I click on this, it'll play for a bar and then switch to this one, which will play for a bar and then switch to that one, which will play for a bar and switch to that one. And because I have it on the legato for both of them, it's just going to pick it up right at the tempo where it's supposed to be, quote unquote. So you can get really creative and do some really cool stuff if you were performing live with this. So you could get it to basically change kind of automatically without you having to touch anything or press any buttons or anything like that. So you can arrange it all on the arrangements view right here, and just have all the changes, all the automation, all the things turning on and off, and volumes going up and down and everything. Or you can kind of do it like this with the clips. You could set the envelopes here where you're setting the panning or the transposition or whatever, the volume, whatever it is. and do it that way. So it just gives you a lot of different options for how you can kind of approach sounds, or how, combining them together. And one of the other things that's really cool is Ableton acts as essentially like an old school DJ deck, where you have like an A side and a B side. And if you look over here down in this corner pane right here, so we have the in and out, which is that IO. So if I click that off, it won't show the in and out sections, the inputs and outputs. This is the sends section, returns. I don't have any returns in right now, so it's just not going to show anything. This is the mixer, so you can see whether you want to turn the volume up and down and everything. And then this is track delay, which is, you don't have to really worry about this if you set your delay compensation in the preferences correctly. And then right down here is the DJ deck thing, where you have an A and B, and you can select them, and then you have a slider right here. So whether it's going to be on the A side, which is the left, or the B side, which is that side. So you could also do, like for DJs, they really like this because they can kind of blend the songs by using the A and the B deck. So I could set like, let's see. So I'll set this one as A and this one as B. And in the middle, it just means like half and half. So if I go like this, there's both of them going at the same time. So if I go all the way to the left, it's going to be all bass. I go all the way to the right, all piano. It's a really kind of rudimentary example here, but that's how it works. So you could kind of slide that and get cool transitions into other parts or other songs, or kind of whatever it might be. So that's how that works. And then I think one of the other important things is kind of how this view, the clip view, works in concert with the arrangement view. So one way you might do this is, let's say you have a drum beat and you put it out here in the arrangement view. You can see right now it's kind of like grayed out, or it's not like sharp. And then you have these little play button kind of things right here, and then this red button up here, which is the back to the arrangement. All this means is that something else is kind of happening in this area, and that's why these little lanes show up like that. So I could undo each one individually like that, or I could just click this thing to get it to go back to whatever is right here. And because there was nothing right there, it will just go back to completely blank, no clips will play or anything. And now we have the drums right here, right? So what I could do is I could come up here. If you see this little thing right here, this is just like a looper. So I can come up here and then set that. And then if I click on this right here, this is the loop switch. So I turn that on, and now when I get to the end, it'll just repeat at the beginning, and it'll just keep going like that. So what I could do is you could use the drums in here, and then I could switch between basses right here, and then switch between different melodic sounds right here, all while this is just playing right there. So you can get super creative with how you do it. So like maybe this, let me take this off the launch thing. Cool. So now I have the drums playing on this side, on the arrangement view, not playing in the clip, but you can see if I click here, it'll show you what actually the MIDI notes are. It's referring to these. It's this right here. So if I do something over here, like, take away one of the things, it'll be updated here, but not here, because I'm using this instance in the arrangement view and not in the clip or the session view, right? So I can use this, like this is playing, so it's the piano's playing just the clip on this side, but it's the drums over here. So you can use them at the same time, or like in different kind of ways to get different results, if that makes sense. So you can use them, you can, have stuff on here and then overwrite it. So let's say like, let's just make a drums B right here. And what I'll do is I'll just take away the kicks on this one. Cool, so we'll just mute all those. And to mute them, you just hit 0, and that'll turn them off. So now, let's say we have the drums right here, and then we're gonna have the piano playing, but cool. Now let's say I wanna do the B drums. I'm like, hey, I want the B drums to start at right here now. So if I click that, now that gets grayed out, and now it's playing just from this side. So now I have two things from the clip view playing and nothing playing on here, even though it's still there. It's still there. It's not going to disappear, but it's grayed out. It just means this is playing, like something other than what the arrangement is playing or is in action or is active or whatever it is. So you can use stuff that's already here or not. It just depends on kind of how you want to do it. So you have all these different options here to get really creative. And I think one of the best things about Ableton is just being able to remix kind of your own stuff and just come up with ideas super fast. And the clip view is a big reason why.